Hey everybody, Jesse with Survival Summit. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the 9 Pillars of Preparedness. I'm actually going to be reading you a chapter from our new book, The 9 Pillars of Preparedness, Mastering the Essentials to Stay Alive and Thrive. If survival is a house, then preparedness is the foundation it's built on. This is the first and most important preface to the 9 Pillars of Preparedness for a reason. Every other survival skill, including shelter, fire, water, food, medical, signaling, land navigation, and personal protection, is useless if caught off guard, mentally unprepared, or logistically unprepared. Disasters don't come with a countdown clock. When things go sideways, your brain is either already running a plan or trying to catch up under stress. One leads to control, the other leads to panic. Preparedness is a mindset before it's a skill set. Before discussing gear, checklist, or bug-out plans, we need to discuss something more important: you. Preparedness doesn't start in your backyard. It begins in your head. It's not about how many tools you've stockpiled. It's about how you think under pressure. It's how you perceive threats. It's your ability to anticipate danger before someone spells it out for you. Most importantly, it's about taking full ownership of your life and safety before anyone else can do it for you. In a survival situation, some people freeze, others move. And that difference, often life or death, rarely comes down to skill or experience alone. It comes down to mindset. The right mindset keeps you present, keeps you adaptive and decisive. It makes you resourceful when resources are scarce. So, how do you build that mindset? You start by learning to accept reality without delay or denial. One of the deadliest delays in any crisis is the time your brain spends arguing with reality. You hear a strange noise in the middle of the night and hope it's nothing. You see floodwaters rising on the street, but convince yourself it won't get that bad here. You realize you've lost the trail and you tell yourself, camp is probably just around the corner. That voice in your head, that's denial, and denial kills. Every second you spend wishing things were different is a second you're not solving the problem. In survival, your first job is to face the facts as they are. No sugarcoating, no panic, no fantasy, just the truth. Why does this happen? Well, because your brain is built for comfort. Survival isn't. In a crisis, your first and most dangerous opponent isn't a storm, a wild animal, or even a shortage of supplies. It's your own mind. The natural human reaction to sudden, overwhelming change is often not action, but avoidance. This isn't a sign of weakness. It's a deep-seated psychological wiring that once served us in less complex times, but in modern survival context, that wiring can cost you everything. We're all creatures of habit. We like routines, predictability, and the illusion of control. So when something breaks the pattern, whether an unexpected injury, a car crash, an explosion, or even getting lost in unfamiliar terrain, your brain's first instinct is to force the world to make sense again. It wants to believe everything's okay. Normalcy bias is a deeply rooted tendency to downplay danger and assume that life will continue as usual. It often sounds like this: I'm probably overreacting. Or, it doesn't look that bad yet. Or it could be, help will be here any minute. These aren't just comforting thoughts, they're potentially deadly ones. In a survival situation, minutes and even seconds matter. The longer you hesitate, the more options you lose. Accepting the truth of your situation, wholly and immediately, is your first step towards staying alive. Recognize when your brain is trying to lull you back into false comfort and consciously break that pattern. You can't solve a problem until you fully admit you are in one. Preparedness begins the moment you stop saying, "This can't be happening," and start asking, "What's my next move?" Everything else flows from that. Your brain hates uncertainty. Another reason we argue with reality is the brain's discomfort with uncertainty. When your brain doesn't have a clear answer, it often picks the most comfortable explanation, even if it's wrong. This is why people stay in dangerous homes during wildfires, keep hiking deeper into the woods when they're lost, or waste time hoping someone else will take charge. The brain would rather hold on to a lie that it understands, than face a truth that it doesn't. The biology of freeze. There's a third factor, your nervous system. In high-stress moments, the body defaults to fight, flight, or freeze. Most survival talk focuses on fight or flight, but freeze is just as common and far more dangerous. In freeze mode, your body locks up. You stare, you breathe shallowly, and you wait. It's like a software crash in your brain. People die in that freeze, simply because they couldn't get past the shock. That's not cowardice. That's biology. So how do we override it? Understanding your brain reacts this way is the first step to overcoming it. You don't beat panic by pretending it's not there. You beat it by recognizing the pattern and choosing a different response. When you feel denial creeping in, say this to yourself: "This is happening, and I will respond." It's a switch, a reset, a signal to your mind and body that you are in charge now, not the fear. With training, this becomes automatic. The more you expose yourself to discomfort, cold, pain, pressure, decision-making under stress, the more your brain learns that reality, even when ugly, that it's something that you can handle. And once you know that, you could become damn hard to kill. What acceptance looks like in the real world. Denial delays action. Acceptance drives it. In theory, accepting reality sounds abstract, but in survival, it's as practical as tying your boots. The difference is how fast you recognize what's happening and act on it. People who survive don't waste time hoping for a better situation. They own their situation, no matter how bad it looks, and then they start solving it. Here's what it looks like in the field. You hear gunshots in your neighborhood. Denial would say, it's probably fireworks. Acceptance would be, drop your profile, get to cover, and scan for direction and distance. Check on your family, lock down your home, and get your communications up. Don't wait for the news to confirm it was gunfire. You respond now. You slip on a hike and twist your ankle. Denial would be, I can walk it off. I'm probably close to the trailhead. Acceptance is, you stop, assess the injury, check your supplies, and make a controlled plan to stabilize, move, shelter, and signal. You conserve energy, you protect the limb, and you act with understanding that help may not be immediate. What about when the power grid fails citywide? Denial, it'll be back on in a few hours. Acceptance, you assume it's long-term until proven otherwise. You secure water, food, security, and sanitation. You activate your comms plan, top off your backup batteries, and check on vulnerable neighbors. You don't wait for the government to catch up. You start acting like no one is coming. All right, your bug-out route is blocked. Denial would be, we'll wait it out. This should clear up soon. Acceptance is, you switch to plan B. Maybe that means turning around and sheltering in place. It may mean taking a less safe secondary route. Either way, you act before traffic traps you or the daylight disappears. Let's say your shelter gets compromised in a storm. Denial. I think it'll hold for a little bit longer. Acceptance is, you get wet now, but you don't get hypothermic later. You move, you rebuild, you improve. You don't waste mental energy blaming the wind, the tarp, or the decisions that you've made. You adapt and solve the problem that's in front of you. Here's another one. You lose cell signal in the middle of nowhere. Denial is, I'll just keep going. There's bound to be a tower ahead. Acceptance is, stop immediately, assess your position, backtrack if necessary, break out your paper map and your compass or GPS backup. You log your current location, set a waypoint, and ensure someone knows you've gone dark. You do not bet your life on probably. The pattern is clear. You don't need to be fearless. You need to be honest and fast. If you look at survivors across every environment, combat zones, wilderness disasters, urban collapse, there's a distinct behavioral pattern that separates those who live from those who don't. It's not always about skill level or physical strength. It's not about having the best gear or even the most experience. It comes down to something much more simpler and much more powerful. They recognize reality faster, they accept it completely, and they act immediately. For those of you just joining us, we are reading Chapter 1 of the 9 Pillars of Preparedness, which just launched about a week ago. You can get it on Amazon, and in a couple weeks, it'll be available on our website as well, thesurvivalsummit.com. So let's break this pattern down. 1, you need to see the facts clearly. Survivors don't waste precious time or energy on denial, blame, or wishful thinking. They don't get caught up in what should be happening or what they hoped would happen. They don't indulge in fantasies that the situation will magically fix itself. Instead, they confront the brutal facts of reality immediately, fully, and without hesitation. That clarity, that ability to see things exactly as they are, no matter how painful or terrifying, is one of the most powerful mental tools a person can have in a survival scenario. When things go wrong, and they will, survivors don't close their eyes to it. They see the broken leg, exposed bone, and they recognize the urgency. They see the storm rolling in across the tree line, dark clouds moving fast, and know their time to act is limited. They see the missing trail marker and instantly understand they are no longer on the right path. And in each of these moments, where denial could creep in, where a less prepared mind might freeze or start making excuses, they don't say, "This isn't happening." They say, "Okay, now what?" The short phrase, "now what?" is deceptively powerful. It shifts the mind from panic to planning, from reaction to action. It doesn't mean they all have the answers. It means they're mentally prepared to start finding them. This mindset allows a person to stay functional when others shut down. It keeps the problem in front of them and puts the power back in their hands. That kind of clarity under pressure is more than just useful. It's a survival superpower. It allows you to make decisions when others are stuck in fear. It keeps your brain online and everything around you is going offline. And it doesn't come from luck or genetics. It comes from practice, self-discipline, and the relentless habit of facing facts head on. In survival, you cannot afford the luxury of denial. Wishing the weather would improve doesn't stop the cold. Hoping help will arrive doesn't replace the need for a plan. Getting angry that you're lost won't make the trail reappear. You have to train yourself long before a crisis ever hits to respond to reality, not emotion. That training starts with learning to pause, assess what it is, and ask with calm determination, "Now what?" Because that question, asked honestly and clearly, keeps you alive. Number 2, detach hope from fear. Hope can keep you mentally alive, but if it replaces action, it'll get you killed. Fear can alert you to danger, but if it freezes you, it becomes the danger. Survivors don't ignore their emotions, they just don't let those emotions control their decisions. They acknowledge the fear, and then they do the job anyway. They feel hope, but they keep moving without relying on it. In survival, emotions are fuel, and you are the driver. Third, make a decision. This is where most people hesitate. They don't want to make the wrong move, so they make no move at all. They wait for perfect information or confirmation from someone else. And in many situations, that delay is fatal. Survivors understand this truth. A good, fast enough decision beats a perfect decision made too late. They commit. They adjust as needed. They don't get stuck in indecision while the situation deteriorates. 4, take action immediately. Survivors don't wait around once a decision is made. They move. There's no second guessing, no pause to ask for permission, and no delay waiting for the perfect moment. They understand that perfection is a luxury they cannot afford. Instead, they execute the decision with full commitment, knowing that action, even if imperfect, is almost always better than hesitation. They don't sit idly, hoping the conditions will improve. They take the first step, then the next, then the next. That momentum does something important. It transforms paralysis into purpose. Action builds momentum, and momentum builds control. And control creates safety. Even when the situation feels chaotic, decisive action breaks the problem into manageable pieces. Survivors reclaim their footing, not with one big heroic act, but through precise, confident movement, one deliberate step at a time. And this mindset isn't just for life or death moments. The same pattern applies to everyday life. Your car breaks down in freezing weather. What's your first move? You smell smoke in your house at 2 a.m.? Do you assume it's nothing? Or do you investigate immediately? Your child takes a nasty fall in the woods. Do you freeze or do you calmly assess and treat the injury? These moments may not make the headlines, but they test your readiness. Train now while the stakes are low. Build the habit of observation, assessment, and action into your daily life, so that when the pressure's on, your brain already knows what to do. If you take only one thing from this chapter, make it this: clarity, acceptance, decision, and action. That is the survivor's loop. Train it, live it, rely on it. This pattern will carry you further than any tool, checklist, or supply cache in the moments that matter. And when the worst does happen, you'll already be ahead of the game, not because the world got easier, because you got stronger. Survival isn't built on hope. Hope is not a plan. It's a feeling, and feelings, while important, won't stop hypothermia or a charging threat. Acceptance isn't surrender. It's readiness. It doesn't mean you like the situation. It means you've made peace with reality and are now prepared to face it head on. That shift from resistance to engagement is what separates those who live from those who don't. Too many people treat reality like the enemy. When disaster hits, they resist. They get angry. They say, "Why now? This isn't fair. I wasn't ready." They freeze, not because they lack the skills, but because the world they're facing doesn't match the story they were telling themselves. This mismatch between expectation and reality causes paralysis. But survival doesn't care about your expectations. It only cares about your response. The flood doesn't wait for you to catch your breath. The wildfire doesn't care about your weekend plans. The attacker doesn't pause to let you gather your thoughts. These things happen without mercy and without apology. And yet, reality isn't your enemy. It's just there, unforgiving, unemotional, and unstoppable. It doesn't owe you an explanation. But the shift makes all the difference. Survivors stop treating reality like an adversary, and instead treat it like the arena. The storm isn't your opponent. It's the ring that you fight in. The terrain isn't trying to kill you. It's the course you have to navigate. Just like a soldier doesn't get to choose the battlefield, or a mountaineer doesn't select perfect weather. You don't get to control the conditions. You only get to adapt within them. You don't win by complaining about the terrain. You win by mastering your movement across it. You don't win by hoping the storm passes. You win by building your shelter before the storm breaks you. You don't survive by waiting for someone to save you. You survive by working the problem, step by step, breath by breath, until you find your way out. This is the truth at heart when it comes to survival. Reality is not your opponent. It's your operating environment. The jungle, the storm, the darkness, the noise, it's not personal. It just takes the space you have to operate in. And the sooner you stop resisting that reality, the sooner you regain power. Resistance wastes energy. Acceptance directs it. So, when the lights go out and the wind starts howling, or the threat steps into your space, don't waste time asking, "Why me?" That's not the question that will save your life. Instead, breathe, move, adapt, and solve. Survival doesn't happen in the comfort zone or the fantasy of what should be. It occurs in the gritty, raw truth of what it is. And if you're ready to step into that arena, reality becomes not something to fear, but something you can fight through, conquer, and survive. If you're just tuning in, we are reading the first chapter of the 9 Pillars of Preparedness that we just put out last week. This is a fairly long book. It's about 110,000 words. It is about 446 pages, and it is available on Amazon. There should be a link on our website as well as a link in our bio. Your environment isn't the problem. Your response is. Stop wasting energy on the why me's. One of the most dangerous things you can do in a survival situation is waste precious time and mental energy asking, why me? Far too many people burn their emotional fuel reserves on frustration and self-pity. Why now? This isn't fair. I didn't sign up for this. These thoughts might feel natural in the moment, but they do nothing to help you in your situation. They don't warn you, they don't guide you, and they don't solve the real problems unfolding before you. Here's the cold truth. None of us signs up for catastrophe. No one volunteers for disaster, injury, violence, or isolation. But disaster doesn't need your permission. It just shows up. In fairness, that's a concept we invented to make society run smoother. Out in the real world, under the sky, in the dirt, in the chaos, fairness doesn't exist. Nature doesn't operate on justice. It operates on reality. Every second you spend mentally resisting what's already happened is a second you're not doing something about it. You're not building a fire. You're not treating a wound. You're not navigating to safety. And you're not protecting those who count on you. And in a crisis, time is your most limited and valuable resource. You can't waste it nursing anger at the universe. That energy needs to go somewhere useful, because when you're exposed, bleeding, cold, or hunted, what matters most isn't how you feel about it. What matters most is what you do next. The harsh truth: no one is coming to save you. Nature doesn't care if you're tired, wet, or emotionally exhausted. It doesn't pause the storm because you've had a bad week. It doesn't care if you're sleep deprived, hungry, or scared. It doesn't ask you if you were raised for this kind of thing. It doesn't care if you've never camped a day in your life. The environment, threat, and crisis don't adjust to your needs. They are what they are. The blizzard doesn't care if you forgot your coat. The criminal breaking into your house doesn't care if you're unarmed or had a long day at work. The floodwater won't slow down because you haven't learned to swim. That's not cruelty, that's reality. And while that might sound harsh, there's something incredibly powerful about it, because it strips away the illusion that someone's coming to save you. It puts the responsibility squarely in your hands. And in doing so, it puts the power there too. This isn't harsh. It's liberating. At first glance, the kind of self-responsibility feels overwhelming. But once you've fully accepted it, something shifts. You stop waiting for someone else to fix it. You stop looking outward. You realize, it's on me. And that realization is where the real strength starts. Because if it's on you, that means you are the solution. You are not helpless. You are not doomed. You are simply at the beginning of a challenge, and your job is to act, adapt, and overcome. Survival doesn't require you to be perfect. It doesn't require you to be the strongest, the most innovative, or most experienced. It only requires that you engage with the problem, that you take the next step, however small, and then the one after that. Emotion is part of the human experience, but can't be the driver. Anger, fear, and frustration can be felt, but they cannot dictate your actions. Save the breakdown for later. Curse the weather once you're warm. Cry about the injury after the bleeding stops. Right now, you've got work to do. Emotions aren't wrong. Fear is natural. So is anger. And so is despair. But in that moment of survival, those feelings cannot be allowed to lead. You can grieve later. You can collapse once you're safe. But right now, your job is to move, to think, and to act. That's how survivors make it. Not by lamenting that they ended up in the fight, but by getting to work, fighting smart, and solving the problem in front of them, one decision at a time. The best survivors see reality as a playing field. Survivors understand something that many people never learn. Reality isn't your enemy. Again, it's the playing field. Think of survival like a game. Not a game you enjoy, but one with unbreakable rules, harsh penalties, and no timeouts. You don't control the board. You don't get to choose the conditions. You don't get to change the rules. You play the hand you're dealt, or you fold. That's the difference between those who make it out and those who don't. The terrain is part of the challenge. Steep cliffs, flooded roads, tangled forest, or broken cities aren't just obstacles. They're the setting of the game. The terrain isn't working against you. It just is. The question is, can you work with it? Can you read the land like a map? Can you spot choke points, high ground, or natural cover? The survivor doesn't say, this is too hard to move through. They say, how can I move through this better than whatever's coming for me? That shift from complaint to strategy is everything. And the weather is also part of the strategy. Rain, snow, wind, heat, none of these are good or bad. They're just variables. If you're smart, they can become assets. A storm can cover your movement, fog can hide you, wind can carry your sound or your enemies. The best survivors, they don't fear the weather. They forecast it. They plan around it. They ask, how do I use this to my advantage? What's the difference between being reactive and being tactical? Between running from the problem and outsmarting it? The bottom line, don't resist reality. Leverage it. You can't control when a crisis strikes. You can't control the terrain, the temperature, or the threats. But you can control your response. You can see the landscape not as a punishment, but as a platform. Not as the enemy, but as the arena. Everything changes when you stop resisting reality and start working with it. The moment you stop asking, why me? And start asking, what's my next move? You become the person who survives. And more than that, you become the kind of person others survive because of. Unexpected obstacles are part of the test. The trail is blocked. Your fire starter is soaked. The radio's dead. Someone in your group is starting to panic. To the untrained mind, this is what everything feels like when it's falling apart. But this isn't the end to a survivor. It's the next level. These aren't signs of failure. They're expected complications, part of the real-world survival equation. The difference between panic and progress in moments like these isn't found in your gear, your training log, or your past experiences. It's found in your mindset. Survivors expect things to go sideways. They plan for things to fail. So when something inevitably does go wrong, they don't freeze. They don't complain. They don't waste time wishing it were easier. Instead, they pivot immediately. They ask themselves the right questions. What do I still have? What's my next best move? And how do I get back in control, even if just a little? These are the questions that keep your brains operating when others shut down. Survivors don't quit when the script changes. They adapt, and they do it fast. Because in an actual survival environment, speed of adaptation is more important than experience. You don't get points for how well your original plan was going. You get points for how well you pivot when that plan blows up. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. The moment you stop saying, this shouldn't be happening, and instead say, this is the environment I'm operating in. You gain real power. You stop wasting energy on frustration and disappointment. You stop spinning your wheels waiting for ideal conditions, and you start making better decisions, faster. That shift allows you to see the situation for what it is, not what you wish it was. You stop asking for fairness. You start acting with purpose. That mental pivot is what makes you dangerous. Not in a reckless way, but in the best way possible. Calm, focused, and completely engaged with what's in front of you. Because here's the truth. Survival doesn't always favor the strongest. It doesn't always favor the most experienced. It favors the person who can think the clearest and move the smartest in rapidly shifting environments. That means the more adaptable you are, the more likely you are to overcome every obstacle thrown at you. Complaining doesn't solve anything. Flexibility does. Everything begins to change when you begin to see reality as the arena, not the enemy. You shift from panic to focus, from complaints to strategy, from victimhood to leadership. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what's the next best smart move? That's the mindset that gets you through, and that is the thinking that wins. And let's be clear, reality is neutral. It's not out to get you, but it's not out to help you either. The environment doesn't care whether you survive, but that same environment can be used to your advantage if you're mentally prepared. Rain can be danger, but it can also cover your movement. Darkness can feel threatening, but it can also give you concealment. You are not at war with the storm. You are not at war with the terrain. You are not even at war with the situation. You are in the arena. This is your battleground, your proving ground, your test. Your job to operate inside it, to adapt, to endure, to solve problems in real time without waiting for ideal conditions to appear, because they won't. So stop resisting the environment. Start using it. Train your brain to think this way every single day. Start small. Adjust without complaining when the weather ruins your hiking plans. When something breaks in your home, fix it. Don't sulk about how unfair it is. When a meeting at work goes off the rails, focus on the next best move, not on who's to blame. These are your reps. Every time you accept what's happening and act, you teach your brain to adapt under stress. And when the stakes are high, when the real crisis hits, that adaptation and that speed becomes your most valuable weapon. Stay calm and think clearly. When the chaos starts, your ability to think is your most powerful weapon. Lose it, and you've lost the fight before it even begins. In a survival situation, chaos is almost guaranteed. It might come suddenly, a flash flood, an ambush, a power outage, or it might creep in slowly, as the stress of exposure, fatigue, and fear builds day after day. Either way, the result is the same. Your mind becomes the battleground. The most essential survival skill at that moment isn't fire making, or navigation, or first aid. It's thinking clearly under pressure. This isn't just about being calm. It's about being operational, about keeping your brain engaged, your decisions deliberate, and your emotions under control, even when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. Survival isn't a contest of who has the best gear. It's a test of who keeps their head on straight when others don't. That starts with knowing how your mind works under stress and training it before disaster strikes. Panic is the silent killer. Panic doesn't always look like screaming or flailing. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's standing still, unable to move. Sometimes it's making bad decisions, rushing, forgetting, or reacting out of fear, instead of thinking through the consequences. Biologically, panic is your body's built-in alarm system gone into overdrive. When your brain perceives a threat, your sympathetic nervous system kicks in instantly, and your heart races. Blood flows away from your digestive organs towards your limbs. Breathing becomes fast and shallow. Your body is prepared to run, fight, or freeze. This fight, flight, freeze response is ancient, and for short bursts of danger, it's incredibly useful. But in a prolonged crisis, especially one that demands strategic thinking, this response becomes your enemy. The part of your brain that governs calm, logical thought, your prefrontal cortex, gets chemically suppressed under extreme stress. Your memory slips, your fine motor skills degrade. You forget things you know how to do. And worst of all, you become reactionary instead of tactical. You respond to pressure rather than managing it. You must train to interrupt this response. You must develop tools that allow you to override your panic and re-engage your brain. Because in a real-world emergency, your ability to stay calm is what gives you access to your training. It's what allows you to be effective when seconds count. Without it, all the skills in the world are locked behind a wall of fear. Calm isn't passive. It's tactical. Let's get this straight. Calmness is not the absence of fear. It's the control of fear. It's not soft. It's not weak. It doesn't mean you're unaffected by the situation. It means you are disciplined enough to feel stress and still think, act deliberately, and lead others when needed. In a genuine emergency, calmness is active. You have to breathe intentionally, think deliberately, speak clearly, and make decisions without hesitation. It's not about being relaxed, it's about being composed. Like a firefighter charging into a burning building or a combat medic treating a wound under fire. Calmness is something they carry with them. They don't wait for the storm to pass. They operate within it. The truth is, calmness can be trained the same way you train with your rifle, your knife, your map, and your compass. You expose yourself to pressure, practice staying engaged, and slowly build mental endurance. You become harder to shake, not because the world gets easier, but because you've adapted to its demands. Those of you just joining us, we are reading Chapter 1 of the 9 Pillars of Preparedness, which a book we just put out this past weekend. Next up in this chapter is the OODA loop, your mental operating system under pressure. One of the most effective tools for clear thinking under stress is the OODA loop. Originally developed by U.S. Air Force Colonel John Boyd, this 4-step mental model helps fighter pilots and now survivalists, law enforcement, and special operations personnel make rapid, clear-headed decisions in high-stakes environments. Let's break it down. The first O in OODA is observe. Take in everything around you. What's happening? What has changed? What are the threats, resources, and opportunities? Observation includes not just your external environment, but also your internal state. Are you panicking? Are you breathing too fast? Start by noticing. In survival, observation might mean watching cloud movement for incoming weather. It might mean scanning for animal tracks, exits, or movement in the brush. It might mean seeing a person's behavior change and knowing something's wrong. The more you practice intentional observation, the more your brain learns to scan without panic. The second O in OODA is orient. This is the most complex and essential step. Orientation is your mental framework. It's how you interpret what you're seeing, based on your knowledge, experience, training, and instincts. Two people can see the same scene and interpret it very differently. The goal here is to be accurate and adaptive, not reactive or biased. For an example, someone without training may see a fire and freeze. A trained survivalist sees a fire, evaluates its spread, considers wind direction, available escape routes, fuel sources, and then chooses their next move. Orientation takes data and turns it into usable context. D in OODA is decide. Once you've interpreted the situation, you must make a decision, and quickly. This is where calmness pays off. People who haven't trained in this loop get stuck here, endlessly weighing options or hoping for more clarity. But the OODA loop isn't about perfect decisions, it's about effective ones, made quickly. A good decision made fast is almost always better than a perfect one made too late. And the beauty of the loop is this: it keeps turning. If the decision wasn't ideal, you observe again, reorient, and adapt. And the A in OODA is act. This is where you execute the decision. Move, speak, intervene, set the trap, apply the bandage, signal for help. Whatever your decision is, do it. This isn't the time to second guess. Action breaks inertia. It forces your brain to shift from fear into motion, and motion creates momentum. Then, start the loop all over again. Observe, orient, decide, and act. That is the OODA loop, over and over, until you've solved the problem, escaped the threat, or stabilized the situation. So, real-world application of OODA. Picture this. You're hiking alone in remote terrain. You take a misstep and badly twist your ankle. You're in pain, you're disoriented, and suddenly, very aware that you're several miles from your vehicle, and your phone has no signal. What now? First, you're going to observe. Observe the pain in the ankle, the time of day. If the weather is turning, the water in your bottle half full. Your pack has basic supplies. There's no blood. You hear birds. There are no large predators nearby. You're going to orient next. You're going to recognize the section of the trail. You've passed a potential shelter about half a mile back. You can't move fast, but you can move slowly. You'll need to conserve energy and prepare for the possibility of staying overnight. Then you're going to decide. Return to the shelter site, stabilize the ankle, and make a signal fire. Now it's time to act. You move slowly, carefully, using a makeshift crutch. You control your breathing, keep scanning. You're in the loop, operating under clarity instead of panic. This is how calmness and clear thinking turn disaster into a manageable challenge. Train daily for mental clarity. You don't have to wait for a crisis to train your OODA loop. You train it every day, in traffic, in arguments, in business decisions. In outdoor training, you start noticing when your stress levels rise and practice calming your breath, gathering data, reframing your thinking, and making clean decisions. You train under artificial pressure. Practice land navigation when you're tired. Do first aid drills under time constraints. Run communications check with noise distractions. Learn to manage uncertainty in low light or unfamiliar terrain. And practice at the range, but first, get sweaty and get your heart rate up. These are controlled stressors. You're stimulating the chaos of crisis so that your brain learns a simple truth. I've been here before. I know what to do. One move at a time. That's a good portion of Chapter 1 of our new book, The 9 Pillars of Preparedness, which is about 446 pages. You can get it on Amazon. The link is in our bio. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video podcast. We may read some from our other book, Pace Planning, Your Guide to Emergency Preparedness and Bug-out Strategies. And we have another book coming out sometime in June, it looks like now, called Situational Awareness. We still have a subtitle we're coming up with, and I believe that book is going to be almost as long as this one, maybe even a little bit longer. So until the next video, keep training, keep practicing, keep doing your best, and always remember, your mind is your greatest weapon.